What gets me up in the morning? What do I love? I love playing shadow entrepreneur, and I like solving problems with capital. I happen to hit an inflection point with sports that I couldn't possibly have seen coming.
All right, so let's get started with this jam. So introduce yourself for us. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Gerry Cardinale, founder and managing partner of Redbird Capital.
And what does Redbird do?
Look, Redbird is an investment platform that enables me to invest the way I invested most successfully at my 20-year career at Goldman Sachs. So it's meant to be an investment business that solves problems with capital. I'm really a big believer in legitimacy. And I think, today everybody's got capital. Everybody's running around. There's just too few deals for the amount of capital chasing it. And, my style has always been to start not with the deal, but start with the problem. And if you can solve the problem, inevitably capital is a great way to solve a lot of problems, not all of them. But if you can start with that, you have a great foundation for legitimacy for what you're doing. And that's what Redbird's meant to be.
All right. So we are going to start with the deal because it's a show called The Deal. I think we should start with Yes. You want to start there?
That's the big one.
All right. Yes Network, it's revolutionary. Take us back to the creation of the Yes Network. How did it get started?
Look, it was a hugely radical concept, and we didn't even know it was radical at the time. I mean, this was truly monetizing intellectual property at a time in the late 90s, early 2000s, when most investing in media and entertainment was around distribution. It was cable systems, it was outdoor billboards, radio stations, TV stations. No one really had ever invested in intellectual property. And today that would be just a no-brainer and everyone would get it. George Steinbrenner came calling. And he had just broken away from Cablevision and MSG. And the story he told was fascinating. And what he basically said was, I don't understand how I can be putting all the risk capital in to put these players on the field year in and year out to win a championship. And I just get paid a fee for the monetization of those games. And my counterparty gets the appreciation in a stock price. That doesn't seem fair to me. When he put it that way, I mean, George was such a visionary. The light bulbs went off in our head, and we were like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. I think this was like February of 2001. And we started sort of looking at, well, could we create our own network? And so make a long story short, I was a 33-year-old vice president at the time, and I started building the model. I knew nothing about sports. I was from Philadelphia, so I only knew about the Phillies. I don't think I'd ever seen a Yankee game. And by September, coming out of Labor Day, we basically had the outlines of what would become the Yes Network. And we signed that deal and handshook on that September 10th, 2001.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll never forget, the next day I was driving down the FDR to come into the office to, start the next phases of this, and, saw that the plane hit the tower. And by the end of the week, Goldman Sachs did what you would expect Goldman Sachs to do. At the end of the week of 9/11, Goldman Sachs came in and backstopped what then was the largest private equity check ever written. It was $335 million.
Wow.
And all we had was a piece of paper that said, you now own 40% of the intellectual property of the New York Yankees and the New Jersey Nets, and you need to be on the air April 1st. When you talk about, a crucible of having to really forge your way, and I say George is the kind of person, if you're there for him in a moment like that, he will reciprocate and be loyal to you forever. And that really was sort of the career moment for me. And I haven't looked back. And you've really had that partnership with the Yankee organization, the Steinbrenner family, has been instrumental in everything I do.
So Gerry, if you take a step back, going back to MSG, how far away was MSG from the Yankees? And finally George said, enough. Gerry, let's go do this.
Yeah, good question. It wasn't so much a bid ask. The bid ask was not numeric. The bid ask was philosophical. George, well, he didn't articulate it in terms of equity. George wanted equity. George was a principal. He's a maverick. He's an entrepreneur. And so that was the fundamental difference. Now the world's changed dramatically. But that model of being a rights holder yourself, and monetizing those rights and creating these terminal value businesses. Literally, I say to everybody that, everything I've done, over the last 30 years is really based on that moment. That model hasn't changed. That model where we partner with the rights holder, in this case, the Yankees, they put in their intellectual property and we come in with scalable capital and a company building mentality, which is important, integrating a lot of operating skills in addition to your typical private equity skills. That sort of Venn diagramming is never let me down. And it's sports media and entertainment. Fans are evolving in the way they want to consume this content. And, my view on investing is it's always hard to, no one has a crystal ball, but if you start with great intellectual property, you will be able to navigate the cyclicality and the volatility in the way technology is disintermediating the way these things are monetized.